Hello everyone, this is Dave from Dave's Recent Things. It's a little bit cold here in Canada. I've got my big wool sweater on to keep me nice and warm while I film this intro video for my Valentine's Day compilation video, a little bit of a retro rewind. I've had a ton of questions and requests to put together some Valentine's Day wreaths, so I decided why not take some wreaths of the past and bring them to the present once again for a little retro rewind Valentine's Day wreath compilation video. Why don't I just get started and I'll show you what I made. And today, as I mentioned earlier, I am using two of the Dollar Tree heart wreath frames, along with some ribbon I got from the Dollarama, and these amazing glittery heart picks from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to be using my normal ruler, scissors, and glue gun for today. I am going to start off with my ribbon number 1. This is just red with white hearts. I'm going to glue that around the frame, and then all I'm going to do is just wrap the frame. I'm just simply going to keep it a little bit tight and wrap it around. And I noticed when I came to the corner, I had a little bit of difficulty. You can kind of see here. Usually what I do in corners, I glue it down, but the ribbon wasn't laying down properly. So I just kind of fiddled around with it. It wasn't working out, so I decided to move it around and just wrap it on the outside there, like you can see, and then just continue wrapping around. And I folded it a little bit on the back side, and that actually just turned out really well. So when you're doing this, just fiddle around with that little section there where it all kind of comes together, and eventually it will work out like it did for mine in the end. And for my wrapping, I actually used two almost full lengths of the ribbon that came with it. So the first one, I'm just going to glue it down. I've got it about 75% done. And now I'm just going to continue on with my second roll, gluing that down, and then I'm just going to continue with my wrapping all the way around that heart shape. And once I get to the end, I'm just going to cut off the excess and glue that little piece in place to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. And once that's all nice and dry and ready to go, I have my first wreath all wrapped with my beautiful ribbon. And now I'm going to wrap the second one with a different ribbon. So this is white, red, and pink with hearts. You can see it all done there with my first one. And today I'm going to do something a little bit different with my bow. It's going to be kind of like a lazy man bow. So what I'm doing is I'm cutting two pieces at 10 inches, and then I'm cutting two pieces at 8 inches for my ribbon number 1 and for my ribbon number 2. And I also had this checkered one, and for this one I'm doing 2 at 10 inches, 2 at 8 inches, and 1 at 4 inches. And again, here we go. So ribbon number 1, 2, and 3 are all 2.5 inch wired ribbon. Ribbon number 1, 2 at 10 inches, 2 at 8 inches, and then the same for 2, and then the additional 4 inch for ribbon number 3. And how I'm going to start this off is just that 4-inch ribbon. I'm just going to curl it up into a little tube shape or a cannoli shape, and I'm going to put that to the side. And for the rest of the ribbons, all I'm doing is I'm adding a little glue at one end, and I'm folding them in half. Now, I'm not folding them to create a crease, but I'm going to create a little teardrop for each one of these. So I'm going to go through all of my 10-inch and 8-inch lengths, and I'm going to do the exact same thing, creating that teardrop shape. And now when I attach it to my wreath frame, I'm going to figure out where I want my cluster of ribbons, let's say. And I'm starting off with the 10-inch ribbon, and I'm laying them down just by using my glue gun into like a star shape. And this is going to create kind of a lazy man bow. So if you have troubles making bows or anything like that, you can use this method, and it turns out really, really well, I think. What do you guys think of this little method? It's kind of fun, it's kind of cute, and it's really easy to do. You don't have to mess around with trying to make a bow. And now I'm going to attach those 8-inch pieces. So I have my 10-inch at the lower portion, and then on top of that, I have my 8-inch pieces. And I do have some left over once I put these 8-inch pieces down, so I'm just going to save them and put them on elsewhere as well. You can see this one here I'm putting off to the side, just creating a nice full little bow. And I'm going to put this one on the other side. And I do come in with that last piece eventually and glue that one down as well. And here is where our cannoli comes in, or a little tube. This is our 4-inch piece, and I'm just going to put that right in the center. And then add that one last remaining piece right there at the bottom, just to fill everything in. And then we've created our little lazy man bow. How cute is this? I love all these colors and different ribbons mixed together. It looks good. And here I'm going to attach these heart picks. They're just kind of glittery hearts. These are come from the dollar store. And I'm going to put some glue on the end and then stick them all the way surrounding the little bow that we just created. It adds a little bit of interest and a little bit of glitter, and what's wrong with that, right? And once I'm done, it is all complete, and now I'm ready to assemble my wreath. Look at that bow. Here we go. I have my 2 pieces all ready to go, and I'm just gonna figure out where I want to attach these 2. So I figure out where I'm going to attach them, and then I apply a lot of hot glue on that top wreath, just right at the bottom, and that's going to secure the 2 together. But what I wanted to do is make sure that it doesn't move anywhere, let's put it that way. The glue is fine enough, but I decide I'm going to just add a little bit of a pipe cleaner, feed it through, and secure those 2 wreath forms together, such that they don't move anywhere and that they're all nice and secured. So once I twist that pipe cleaner around, I'm going to cut off the end and then add a little hot glue at the bottom, let it dry, and then boom, here we go. We have our finished Valentine's Day wreath. Nice and bright with those reds, whites, and pinks along with those glittery heart picks. I just love how this turned out, and I hope you did as well. Here's what I'm going to be using today. So I'm going to be using a whole bunch of natural colored burlap, a wire wreath frame, some acrylic paint, painter's tape. I have a canvas here, it's a stretch canvas, and a little grapevine wreath heart, Chanel stems, and a mask, along with some paintbrushes, water, and I would have a rag handy as well. Don't forget that handy dandy plastic ties, my glue gun and glue sticks. And that's my list for today. So for starters, let's all put on our masks when we wear burlap. Fibers get in the air, causes itchy throats and all that other wonderful stuff. So I usually wear a mask. So to start, I'm going to anchor with this clip tie. And I'm going to be using the inside 2 bars, so 2 wires I should say. And I'm beginning pulling the burlap through the 2 or 3 open spaces. Now, I do have other videos. I'm going to link in the top right-hand corner 2 ways to do a natural burlap wreath. So if you want to check those out, those go a little bit more into detail. Today I'm going to do a little quick tutorial, but if you want a slower, more in-depth tutorial, then totally go check out that link. So I'm going to start with my anchor, as I always do with wreaths, and I'm going to use that crossbar. And I'm just going to attach it down with the plastic tie. And I'm putting the plastic tie in one of the openings, and in the second opening, I'm pulling it through. So I'm having that wire, the crossbar, and the burlap all within that plastic tie. Then I just cut off the excess, and I've just created my anchor. Nice and tight. It's not going anywhere. There you go. See how tight it is? It's not moving anywhere. That is our anchor to start with. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be pushing the top of the burlap and the bottom of the burlap through the openings there, such that the wire lays in between in the middle of the burlap ribbon. Now that is going to create your ruffle. So what I do is I gather with my left, you'll see me doing it here, and I guide it with my right hand. So I'm holding everything in my left, I'm guiding the burlap through, folding it in half around that wire, and then I'm just squishing it all together with my left hand and that's going to create the ruffles for you. I'll just show you in a little bit. Our ruffles are starting to form here, and of course they are a little bit loose, so I do want to tighten that up a little bit, so I am going to add some more burlap into that one section. So all I do is I just continue with the same process, and then every now and then I just take a look at it, and then I continue on to the next phase, or the next section I should say, not phase. And then I just go all the way around that inner wreath, and I stop every now and then just to take a look at each section. Is it full enough? Do I need a little bit more? And if I'm happy with it, then I just move on to the next section until I'm all done that first round of my ruffles of my natural burlap wreath. So here I am. I'm done my first round. I'm back to where my anchor is, so back to the starting point. And now I'm going to jump to the second wire. So you'll see there's the second wire that I'm going to go to, and I'm going to feed the ruffles into that. So with the same method we did before, the top portion of your burlap ribbon goes in one section, one opening, and then the bottom we feed through the other opening, and that wire stays right in the middle as we fold the burlap in half. Then I feed with my right hand, and I gather it with my left hand. So there you go. You can see the wires there. It's the second wire in from the edge, and I'm folding the burlap in half with that wire in the middle. So I do the same method all the way around, and here I am. I'm just kind of finishing it off, making sure my burlap's folded in half and that I'm nice and full, and that's going to create your beautiful ruffles. Of course, you can do this with deco mesh as well. Same procedure. I do have a video of that as well. It's how to make a deco mesh wreath 2 different ways with no cutting. I'll link the video up at the top right hand corner if you want to check it out as well. If you ever have the inspiration to try this method with a deco mesh wreath, it is so much fun. Making any wreath is so much fun, let me put it that way. So here I am just doing my final anchor. So it's the exact same method we did before. We are tying it to the crossbar. I'm making sure both those wires are inside the plastic tie with the burlap. I tighten it up, and then I'm just going to chop off the excess. And I have my final anchor, and I'll just chop off the excess of that burlap. Of course, I love burlap. I'm not throwing that away. I'll use that for something else. There we go. So our wreath is all done. I'm just going to fluff it up and take a look at it and see what it looks like. I'm actually really happy with that. And of course, here we go with our reverse canvas painting. And I'm just going to start with my canvas. I'm going to get myself ready with some water, a rag. I'm going to start with my painter's tape. Now for this one, I'm going to do kind of an ombre effect of the colors. So I'm going to have 3 stripes, the bottom color, the darkest, medium color, and then a lighter color. So keep in mind, whenever you're placing tape down, it's going to be, when you take it off, it's going to expose white. So wherever the painter's tape is not covering, that's going to be your colors. So here you go. I'm just starting with my paint, my acrylic paints. I have white and red, nice Valentine's Day colors. And I just do a little bit of, a little blob here and there, just so I'm mixing. It's a little bit easier with everything. So the look that I'm going for this is a little bit of an antique look. So I don't necessarily want to make sure that, for me anyways, for this particular reverse canvas, I don't need it to be 100% perfect in coverage. I want it to be a little bit transparent, a tad bit messy, if you will, because I do want to have this kind of antique looking. So here I am, I'm going to do my second color. I'm just mixing my 2 colors together until I'm happy with the color that I'm going to be painting in the middle row. So I wanted it to be lighter than the bottom color. So here we go. It's a little bit of a darker pink. And I'm also painting the sides because when I take the canvas off to cut it down, I want to make sure I got full coverage. And here for my final color, again, I'm just mixing paint together. And since I want it lighter, I'm obviously adding more white to it. And there you go, my final color. I'm painting all the sides and the top. And then of course, once I'm done with that, I'm just gonna let it dry for a few minutes, few seconds really, and then I'm gonna take the tape off. And I love taking the tape off because it's that reveal. So there you go, my white stripes have been revealed. And then I'm gonna let this fully dry. So I'm gonna let it dry for about maybe a half an hour. Acrylic paints usually don't take that long to dry. And here I am checking it. Yep, it's all dry. So now I can move on. So what I'm gonna do with this is I'm going to antique it a little bit. So make it look a little bit dirty. So I'm taking a paper towel, you can use a rag as well, and dipping it in the water. And then I'm just taking a very little bit of that brown color and I'm just applying it on there. It's almost like a wet brush. The paper towel's a little bit wet. And I'm just doing a very small amount until I get the aesthetic look that I'm looking for here, which is that whole antiqued look. Of course, a friend of mine, Susie, if you haven't seen her channel, her name is Susie Stuff. Totally go check her out. She is phenomenal at doing DIYs and crafts that just make you smile. I'll link her channel up in the top right hand corner. Anyways, her and I were having a conversation about antique versus primitive versus farmhouse. So this is kind of, I guess, a quote unquote primitive look where it looks a little bit antique-y. So that's just a little information for you, but go check out her channel too. So in order to create the reverse canvas, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the staples all around the back of the stretched canvas. Now underneath there is a wooden frame. So if you haven't worked with it before, there's the wooden frame right there. And once you take the canvas off, you can attach that canvas to the back. And as you see here, I'm demonstrating, that's what my reverse canvas is going to look like. So I don't want this natural color, so I'm going to go back and use that same kind of antiquing effect I did on the canvas, but this time I'm just going to throw some paint on the frame itself, and I'm just going to rub it in with that wet paper towel that I used before. I'm not looking for the perfect coverage. I actually don't want perfection in this one, again, because I want to go back to that antique look or primitive look. That's the new phrase that Susie taught me, is the primitive look. So I do want to have that antique look, that stained look, you know, make it look like this picture's been around for 50 years. So there's the final result that I'm aiming for. And the next step that I'm going to do here is I'm going to cut off that excess canvas. So it's actually lined out for you. You can see where the canvas was lined around or wrapped around the wooden frame. So I'm just going to cut along that line, and that should give me enough canvas for the back. And here I am just testing it out. Yep, that works perfectly. I'm happy with that. All I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it over, good side down, add some glue all the way around. Then I'm going to take that canvas and then face down, because our frame is face down as well, I'm going to place it on top and then just secure it down, hold it in place, make sure it's nice and taut, flip it over, and there we go. And what is our last step? Putting that little grapevine heart-shaped wreath. So I'm just putting dabs of glue down. Then I'm going to place it in the center, and I'm going to wait for everything to dry. So it's all dry, and now I'm just going to put some glue on the back because I want to attach this to my wire frame. So I take some glue and full-size Chanel stems, and then I put a whole bunch of glue on the top as well, just to secure it down a little bit. Let that dry, bring my wreath back, and now I'm able to put that reverse canvas onto my finished ruffle wreath. So all I'm going to do is feed it through those wires there. I'm going to wrap it around the two inside wires just to get it nice and secured. I'm going to twist tie it in place, wrap it around, make sure it's nice and secured, flip it over, make sure it's straight, and then I'm going to lift it up and pull some of those ruffles out so you can still see that beautiful ruffle work. And to be honest, here is where I thought I was going to be finished with this wreath. But as I was kind of looking at it and thinking about it, I stopped the video here, I packed up my studio and everything. Then I was kind of thinking, you know what, maybe this needs just a little bit more, and I spent maybe a day or two thinking about it. So here I am, I'm back. You can see there's a different background, but I just thought there was something missing here, and I needed a little bit of something more. I love the way it looks, don't get me wrong. So I had these little wooden hearts, and I thought, maybe I can use these with something. And also, I had these little wooden stickers from the Dollar Tree as well. They were Valentine's themed. So I thought, why don't I use those wooden hearts, these stickers? Let's just play around and see what this looks like. So here I am. I'm just kind of playing around, putting stuff on. Does this work? Does this work? Going back and forth, yes or no. And then, of course, I finally came up with the idea of, you know what? I do like this, and this is exactly what I was looking for. So I glued it all down. It's all dry. Those little hearts just added that extra little oomph that I was looking for, and I'm so happy with it. And I hope you like it as well. If you do, hit that like button and maybe leave me a comment down below. I am going to be using the 14-inch wire wreath frame from the Dollar Tree with this jute rope garland that I purchased there as well. Some of this burlap and red 9-foot 1.5-inch wired ribbon, this little heart that I got, and I'm going to be using red paint, a paintbrush, and my scissors and my handy dandy Surebonder glue gun today. I first start off with a little bit of paint and that little rustic heart there. I guess it's made out of bamboo or wood or something wrapped around a wire heart frame. And all I'm doing is just very quickly giving it a top coat of that red color. And then when I compared it to the ribbon, I felt it was just a little bit too red. So I'm going to come in and use a little bit of brown. And I'm going to use my existing paintbrush that has some red paint on there and just kind of mix it together a little bit, just to tone that red down just a little bit. And all I'm going to do is mix the two colors together briefly, and then I'm just going to quickly go over it with my paintbrush. And you can kind of see right there, it does tone down that bright red. But again, I don't want this to be full coverage, just a little bit. And I still want some of that bamboo or wood to show as well. I'm going to let that dry. And as I let it dry, I'm going to start wrapping my jute rope and my ribbon to my wreath. So I'm going to start with a little hot glue on the back side of the wreath, right where that crossbar is, and that's where I'm going to attach the rope to it. And I just hold it in place until it dries. And then what I'm going to do is, with my left hand, I'm going to hold the rope in place, and then I'm going to wrap that rope around. And it's going to be 4 times that I wrap this rope around. So you can see here, just as I start off, I am taking my time. I'm holding it with my left. I'm going to wrap it around the 4 times, like I said. And this is going to be the start of our little pattern that we're going to do on this wreath today. And what I do is I add a little hot glue on the back side of my ribbon. And I'm just going to glue that right down to the frame, right beside where I started my first round of that rope. Then I'm just going to lay it out, see how it looks, and then I'm going to do 2 loops with the rope. So we started off doing 4 loops, and then we're going to do 2 loops. So basically for the 4 loops, your ribbon is on top, and for the 2 loops, the ribbon is below. So now that's going to be our pattern. I'm going to end this right here, and I'm going to put my ribbon on the left side. And you can see I am working with my right, but holding everything with my left because I don't want it to move on me as I go. And if you want, you can glue each strand around, but I just find once you get it all in there, it doesn't move at all. So again, we're going to do the 4 rounds of our rope. I'm going to bring that ribbon back across, but I like to glue it down. So I just put a little bit of glue down. Then I'm going to bring that ribbon over and I'm going to place it on the glue. And then I do like a little fold just to bring it around, just so it's nice and secured, and I'm going to have that beautiful ribbon showing the whole time. And of course that fold is hidden by our 2 rounds of rope. So again, we do the 2 rounds and we come back to the start of our pattern. We put our ribbon to the left-hand side, and then I do my 4 rounds again. So it's 4 rounds with the ribbon on top, 2 with the ribbon below, and I finish off my entire wreath doing this. And it just so happened I was lucky that I could end off with 2 rounds. So I cut the excess ribbon, and then I finish my wreath off with the 2 on top of our ribbon. And all of the little cuts and glue marks, they are all hidden with our rope. Once that's done, I'm just going to cut the excess off, and I'm going to glue that last bit of rope down. Like I said, this whole wreath took 6 of those packages. So it's 6 packages and 1 package of the ribbon in order to complete this base wreath right here, not including the bow. And for our bow today, I do have the chevron pattern and the polka dot pattern, and I am cutting these at 18-inch lengths. So I'm cutting 4 of the polka dot pattern, and I'm cutting a couple of the chevron pattern. So I have 4 and 3 for those, and all I'm going to do for the bow is just fold it in half, grab it at the center, squish it in, and then I'm going to hold it with my 2-piece fingers. And then I'm going to take my next pattern, do the exact same thing, fold it in half, find my center, and then put it in between those piece fingers. So I just do that for the rest of the bow. All of my pieces are going to be done exactly the same way. And you can notice I didn't do a dovetail at the bottom of or at the ends of the ribbons. I wanted to do something a little bit different. I always do dovetails and I always love it. But this time around, I thought, you know what? I think I'm just going to leave it square. They were good cuts, so I was happy with it. And here you go. We are almost done. We have all the loops on one side and all the tails on the other side. And then I'm just going to grab very quickly a pipe cleaner, bend it in half, and then I'm going to transfer all the material to one hand while I twist with my left hand. And that's going to secure all our ribbons together with our bow. And what I usually like to do with my bows when I have tails is I like to separate the tails. So I'll fluff them out a little bit, just get them a little bit more organized so I can bring that pipe cleaner down, and that's going to attach around our wreath. And we can fluff it up a little bit, and when we're done, we have our beautiful bow ready for our wreath. And speaking of wreath, here we go. So we're adding our finishing touches all together. I'm taking a little bit of twine to hang that heart right in the middle. So I'm just kind of bringing it up, seeing how far I want it to hang down. And really all I'm going to do is tie a knot with that rope, and then it's going to secure nicely. Once I chop off the excess, I find out where the best place for that heart is going to be. And then once that's done, now I'm just going to attach my bow using those pipe cleaners, wrapping it around the back, and then twisting it in place and making sure that's not going to go anywhere. And then I am all done with my little rustic Valentine's Day wreath. Of course, I have to fluff up my bow. You guys know I love to fluff up my bow. And here we go. We have our rustic jute rope and burlap ribbon Valentine's Day wreath with the big heart right in the center. I just love how this turned out. And I love this burlap ribbon from the Dollar Tree. I am just using a typical 14-inch wire wreath frame that I got from the Dollar Tree. And I found these ribbons from Dollarama actually. They're 2.5-inch wide wired ribbons. And I loved how these look, and I totally knew I was going to make something out of a wreath out of these ribbons for sure. So how I'm starting it is I'm just adding a bead of glue, and then I'm going to fold it down on that inside wire. And then all I'm going to do, it's really simple, is I'm just going to wrap that ribbon all the way around the wreath. a little bit on an angle. So what I'm doing with my right hand is I'm just wrapping it around, pulling it a little bit tightly, and with my left I'm just holding it in place. So that gives me the ability to move it around and wrap it around again and again. And for this, these are 9-foot length ribbons, and you'll see in just a few seconds I do run out of my first roll, and once I'm at the end I'm just going to flip it over and glue that down on the back side so it's not visible at the front. Add a bead of glue, hold it down, wait for it to dry, and then I'm going to grab my second roll, add a bead of glue where it stopped. And just a word of warning, if you have ribbon like myself where you have a good side and a bad side, be sure that that good side is facing out. I've learned from my mistakes in the past, trust me. So here you see I just use a little bit of that new roll. I'm going to give it a chop off, add some glue, and then I'm going to fold it over, and then I'm just going to glue it down on the back side. And that is going to create the base of our circular ribbon wreath. I love how the glitter adds a little bit of sparkle to it. And my last video, I should say, I had these foam hearts left over from when I was doing cutouts, and I decided I'm going to use it for this wreath. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up those edges a little bit. So I'm taking strips of the red felt, going to add a little bit of glue down on one side. I'm going to flip it over, add a little bit more glue on the other side, and then fold it over, just kind of finishing off those edges a little nicer than the exposed foam core. So again, I'm going to do that on the other side, folding it over and creating a nice clean edge. And once I come to those curves, I'm going to use another piece, but this time I'm going to cut little tabs in my felt. And what that's going to do is that's going to create little tabs so you can fold them around the curve, and it makes the curve a little bit smoother. Instead of using just a straight piece of felt that'll get all crinkled and everything, this will create a nice little smoother effect when you use the tabs around the corners. Once I get one side down, I flip it over, add glue to my tabs, and then I'm going to flip those tabs over, creating that nice smooth edge. And it'll be a nice finished edge too, so you don't have to see that foam core. Of course, this step is completely up to you if you want to do it or not. I just wanted to finish my edges a little bit. And once I'm done with my final tabs, I'm ready to decorate the rest of my heart. The idea I had for this was a little bit of like a modern abstract heart. So I didn't want to just cover it with a plain felt like one size. So I wanted to make some interest, create some depth to it. So what I decided to do, these are about maybe 1.5, maybe 1.25 inch strips. The cubes ended up being maybe a little bit over an inch each, but I didn't really measure anything. I was fine with eyeballing it. I thought, you know, that would add a little bit more of that abstract look that I wanted to it if it wasn't all perfectly square. So I just have my little squares here. I'm going to bring my heart back, and then I'm just kind of gluing them down randomly. At first, I kept them all within the outline of the heart, and then eventually you'll see here too, I do change it up a little bit, and I overlap the edges with my felt. You'll see that in just a second. Here I am overlapping, you can see on the right-hand side, and I kind of love how that looks, but I do end up in the end cleaning that up, and I take my scissors and I go around creating a sharper edge and that heart shaped as well. And once I glue all these pieces down, I have my heart, and I'm going to take my scissors and just trim the edges. Here's my heart all ready to go. I'm going to glue that down, and I will say this, once I glued it down I thought I was done, in my mind. And then I started looking at it and I was like, this needs something more. I don't know what it needs, but I was looking at it, standing up, turning it around. I didn't know what it needed, but it needed something. So I had some of this other Valentine ribbon, and this is a thinner ribbon. This is about maybe a half an inch, maybe. And I just cut it into little strips. And what I do with the little strips is I just ended up gluing it right at the bottom there of that heart, as you can see here. And once I finished gluing it all down, I flipped it over and I'm like, no, that is not what I wanted to do. That doesn't look good. I'm not happy with that. So of course, all the ribbons come off. And I had another heart. This one is just foam core like the first one. And I started laying the ribbons down, kind of thinking, you know, maybe if I glue them like this, maybe this will work. Add a little bit more 3D. And then I laid one across the heart that I just made. And I'm like, yep, that's what I'm doing. I love it when the whole creative process starts flowing and something comes up like this. And then I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. Let's roll with this. And then that's what I did. I just started attaching the ribbon at random angles. Like I said, I had no plan to do this before, so there was no plan in my head. I just kind of played around with the ribbon, see how I wanted it to go. And then of course, at one point, I do say to myself, you could put one more ribbon down and that's it. I think it's here. Yeah. I'm allowed one more piece of ribbon down and there you go. Our circular ribbon wreath with our abstract heart. I just love how this came together and I hope you did too. Here we go. We all love and we have all used this heart-shaped wire ribbon, and I have a couple of different fabrics here. I have white hearts on a red background, and I have this red and white gingham ribbon as well. They're both 2.5 inches. They're both 9-foot rolls, and I'm going to cut a bunch of them at the 7-inch mark. Of course, you can go shorter if you want your ribbon shorter. You can go longer if you want. 7 inches for me is just, it's perfect. It works out really well. Once I get a bunch of the ribbon going, I just fold it in half, line it up, and I create dovetails for each of my ribbons. Just to finish it off a little bit and add some interest to our wreath. And then I just feed it through the last wire, so the outside wire, fold it over, and since it's wire ribbon, you can fold it right at the corners there, and it lays nice and flat. And then I'm just going to take some glue on the inside, and then on the 2 dovetails, fold it over, and I'm just going to glue that in place, such that my ribbon doesn't fly around and go everywhere. It's still a little bit loose, but it's nice and secured in its spot. So here I have my little crossbar in the way, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take that ribbon out and add a little slit right at the side, such that the ribbon can go around that crossbar and hide it just a little bit. So it does overlap the first ribbon. That's totally fine. That's totally cool. But I just wanted to hide that crossbar just a little bit. And again, I'm adding the glue right at the tips of those dovetails, some in the middle, lining them up and pressing it down. So we have a nice start to our ribbon wreath, and a little more glue just to secure everything down. As I go, I don't want everything to move all over the place. And I do want the ribbon to stay in place. And it's just inserting that ribbon with the wire right at the middle mark, adding those little dots of glue. And I'm not using a lot of glue. This is just little dots of glue just to kind of hold them in place so they don't fly around everywhere. And I'm going to place one right at the cross there at the bottom, just kind of squishing it into place. And like I said, the wires do help a lot. And then I just work my way all around that last outer wire with my folded ribbon. And once I get to a cross wire here, I line up my ribbon to where I want it to go, and then I estimate where I want to make that little slit. And I make a little slit right until the midsection or the midpoint of that ribbon. And what that'll do is that will allow the ribbon to kind of come around that cross wire and hide it a little bit. So here I'm going to fold my ribbon in half to make it a little bit easier once I insert it. Then insert the 2 pieces around that cross wire. And then I lay it flat and add some glue to glue all the pieces together. And that's how I go around those little crossbars. I do the same method for each one. As I come to it, I just cut a little slit, fold it through, and then place some glue down to keep it all in place. And my first layer is all done. Now I'm just going to come in with that second wire. So this is the middle wire, and I'm going to do the exact same procedure that I did with that first layer. I'm just going to use a different ribbon for this. I just fold it over, fold it around that middle wire, add a little bit of glue, and then I just continue on moving to my next piece of ribbon all the way around. And of course, every time I come to those little crossbars, I do that same procedure where I put a little slit in there and I just wrap it around that crossbar, kind of disguising it a little bit. And then we can work our way around the entire second layer of the wreath. And of course, you can see it coming together now with the overlapping ribbon. And these ribbons, again, are still 7 inches in length. So the entire wreath is made with 7-inch length ribbon. They're 2.5 inches wide, the wired ribbon, and I used almost 1 roll for each ribbon. So if you were going to do the same ribbon, I would probably do a couple of rolls. If you're going to do different ribbons, as many different ribbons as you want, or rolls. Whatever you choose. Like I said, this is a totally versatile wreath. You don't have to make it just for Valentine's. You can totally do one for summer with summer colors, for winter, for spring, anything like that, or Halloween. Maybe not the heart-shaped, but you can still use this in the round wire wreath frames as well. And we are almost done. We're coming towards the end. I'm almost finished. Adding that last piece on there, right at the bottom there. And here we go. We are all done with our heart-shaped ribbon wreath. I just love how this came together, and look how skinny this is. If I turn it to the side, if anybody has storm doors or anything like that, this is perfect for that. It's nice and narrow, and it's beautiful. Well, at least I hope you think it is beautiful. There's our ribbon wreaths for Valentine's Day.